everybody, and welcome to Congregation Gates of Heaven here in historic Schenectady, New York. I think I had a chance to meet everybody, but if I didn't, my name is Peter Gannon. I'm the President and CEO of United Way in the Greater Capital Region. Very proud to be here tonight in Congregation Gates of Heaven with a member of our board and somebody I call a friend, a community leader, Rabbi Matt Cutler, our host tonight. Rabbi, thanks for having us. We'll hear much more about this beautiful piece of art behind me in just a couple of minutes, but let me talk for a second about why we're here today, March 23rd, 2021. It's the 1-year anniversary since the passing of really a Capital Region icon, Walter Robb, former GE executive, philanthropist, community activist, somebody who, on a personal note for me, taught me a lot about accessibility. And maybe as like a young alpha and trying to make your way in the corporate world, you sort of deem yourself more successful the less access you give people and the more exclusive you try to make yourself be. And it was in my time when I was at the Arsenal where I first met Walter, where I clearly heard of him and had on a whim requested a meeting and expected that same lack of access I thought we were to emulate as young corporate leaders. And what instead happened was we ended up spending 4.5 hours together in my office just shooting the breeze about different ideas, his life and legacy at GE. And that was a friendship that continued for many years when I became a member of the 50 group until last March when he passed away. We're very fortunate to have Walter Robb, his son Richard, with us today, and we'll hear from him in just a few minutes. But COVID has been, has had each of us in some level of crisis. And for some of us, the worst that has been is we've had to endure wearing masks. We've had to deal with isolation, which has created challenges for a number of us. And it's been a very, very difficult time. And for others, the loss and the trauma was much more severe, including the loss of life and serious illness. Over 1,000 deaths here regionally, and nearly 3 million worldwide as a result of this virus over the past year. And there are, unfortunately, more to come, but the light at the end of the tunnel, the reason for optimism today is that science has us in a position where we can turn the corner and get back to some level of normal, gathering with friends and family like we are tonight in a more robust way, and protecting our most vulnerable citizens in our community from serious illness or even death. And so tonight is about honoring those lives that we lost over the past year, our friends and family who got sick and fortunately recovered. And it's also about the frontline heroes who got us through it all. And I don't want to diminish the typical frontline hero that we all think of, because obviously we are grateful for our firefighters and our law enforcement officers, our men and women in the armed services. But the pandemic was somewhat unique in the fact that a new frontline hero emerged. And I will take a second to just give an extra special shout out, because I remember social media is creeping into my head here. But one of my very first tweets in the dawn of this pandemic a year ago was that when this whole thing's over, I'm going to buy everyone a beer and we're going to have a long talk about what a low-skill worker is. Because those low-skill workers, not my term, those low-skill workers, the folks who kept the grocery stores moving, who kept takeout moving, literally kept us all going over the past year. And we owe them a tremendous debt of gratitude for all they did. But through it all, we saw that in spite of the fact that we were forced into isolation, quarantine, people still wanted to come together. And that's why I'm optimistic today. That's why I'm optimistic as the leader of United Way, because that's what we do in this community. That's what folks like Rabbi Cutler do in this community, bring people together. And we are, like I said, have great reason to be optimistic, because we have turned a corner, and if we stay the course, we will be back to normal in the near term. So tonight, as we start to, I'm being very careful. I'm not that superstitious, but I don't want to say something like, as we turn the corner on COVID and then wake up to bad news tomorrow. But this is a time to reflect. And I'm grateful to the artists who took on this challenge to share their gifts with us and start to help us tell the story of what we've endured in the past year. They are both with us tonight. Our muralist, Rachel Baxter, is here, and then also sharing an original poem about her experience in the past year is Dee Collin. We're happy to have him. We'll hear from them momentarily, as well as Richard, as well as the rabbi, and some folks from GE. But here to kick it off is somebody who, there is a joke here about miracles in a synagogue and how an individual who is an executive in a company could end up becoming personal friends with his auditor. But that's exactly what happened with me and Gershon. Gershon was our auditor at United Way. He found the light and moved away from that practice, and we've become personal friends. He's taken on a leadership role in the Emerging Leaders Group that was formed at United Way under the leadership of Sarah Picado, who's standing quietly in the back, probably saying, "You were supposed to wrap it up 4 minutes ago, Peter." But let me bring up one of the co-chairs and the leader of this tribute project from Commerce Hub, a son of Hudson, New York, just like me, and great personal friend of mine, Gershon Keith. Gershon?
Just wanted to say first and foremost, thank you, Peter, for the warm welcome and introduction, and also for allowing me to be a part of this COVID-19 project. So initially, Peter reached out to me about a few months back, and he had this idea of bringing the COVID-19 mural to the Capital Region. And in that, I immediately thought, wow, this is a great idea. This is going to be great to bring the community together, and it'll give everyone a chance to grieve and to mourn and to, just reflect on the hardships that we've experienced over the past 4 months. So from there, we partnered with the Albany Center Gallery, and they put us in connection with Rachel Baxter, local artist, and she created this incredible piece of work here that we have behind us to serve as a tribute for our region. It's hard to reflect on the devastation over the past year, but we're hoping that with Rachel's piece, we can bring the community together and have everyone reflect on this collective devastation that has lost over 1,000 lives in the Capital Region. Rachel's piece is titled Still Life with Gratitude, and we'll be traveling across the Capital Region over the next few weeks or so, and it will wrap up on April 3rd. April 3rd from 1 to 6 p.m. each day it will be shown. My colleague Nikki Brown will talk to you in more detail about the meaning of the piece, but first I'd like to say thank you to our sponsors and partners for their critical support of this project. Thank you to our very generous sponsor, General Electric, to our transportation sponsor, Tech Valley Hospitality Shuttle, and thank you to our partner, sites hosting the mural, Albany Center Gallery. The New York State Writers Institute, North Atlantic States Carpenters Training Fund, Maureen Seeger from Upstate Alliance for the Creative Economy, and the Robb family. We would also like to recognize the support of Congressman Paul Tonko, who unfortunately could not be here tonight, but thank you to Diana Barrett for attending on his behalf. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce Nikki Brown, Community Relations Manager at the United Way Greater Capital Region.
Thanks so much, Gershon. We went into this project with two objectives. The first, we wanted to create space for members of the Capital Region community to safely come together and remember those that we've lost, reflect on the various hardships we've experienced, pay tribute to those who have spent the year working in service to others, and perhaps most importantly, to leave with a sense of hope for navigating the days ahead. Our second objective for this project was to meet community members where they are, both literally and metaphorically. In a literal sense, Still Life with Gratitude was designed from start to finish to be easily moved across United Way of the Greater Capital Region's 7-county service area. been, without question, nothing short of remarkable. People like me, whose families live across the country, have not been able to help loved ones at a time when all you want is comfort. All of this is to say that we intended for this mural to be presented so that every person who visits can find a sentiment that resonates with their own experience. I'd like to now read you artist Rachel Baxter's statement about the meaning of Still Life with Gratitude. 12 moon faces represent the passing of time and encompass a bouquet. Each flower has a special meaning. There is echinacea for strength, lilac for remembrance, and zinnia for endurance. The tulips are a nod to the official flower of Albany, and their orange color signifies spiritual and emotional connection, as well as appreciation. The periphery of the bouquet consists of blue forget-me-nots, as well as yellow mullein and eucalyptus, both of which symbolize healing. This piece is in honor of those we lost during the pandemic, and to show gratitude for the essential workers who continue to get us through it. It is an offering, and to anyone and everyone who needs a moment of peace and reflection. As you can see, Rachel created a vibrant work of art meant to meet the community where they are. A lot of focus over the past year has been on the tangible, the daily counts of new cases, devastating unemployment numbers, industries shutting their doors for months on end. The power of art lies in its ability to take the intangible, the complexity of emotions I'm sure we've all felt as our lives changed overnight, and represent those sentiments in a creative, warm, and welcoming way. Art drives personal reflection, as you'll see when you visit Rachel's mural, and later this evening when you hear Dee's work. So we hope that you can come see the mural as it travels and find a little piece to navigate the days ahead. I'd like to now invite Todd Alhart, Executive Media Relations and Chief Technology Storyteller at GE Research, to join us on the mic.
Still Life with Gratitude. Rachel Baxter's beautiful mural and tribute so poignantly captures the losses we mourn, but also the hope and inspiration we feel for lives saved and our battle to defeat this pandemic. It was a year ago today that GE and the Capital Region lost a true treasure, Walter Robb. You know, as a spokesman for GE, been there for many years at the research lab, I got a chance to know Walt. It was an absolute pleasure. He was a frequent visitor to the research lab. My colleague Jim Brady was with me today, knows well, a frequent attendee to our Scientific American weekly luncheon on various technology topics. His curiosity about technology, for those who know him, was insatiable. And it gave us a chance to see him. And I had a chance to actually spend time with him about 4 months before he passed. We were coming up on the annual Science Day, where we bring schools from fourth graders from schools across the region to experience a day of science at the lab. And it was the 30th year, so it was a big year, and so I was looking over an old article of how it all started, and lo and behold, it was Walter Robb that started Science Day. He was fortunate to have a chemistry lab when he was growing up, and he thought, gee, I'm head of the R&D center, I've got a lab that I can open up to the kids. And so he challenged the scientists at the time to bring kids to the lab and had them experience science in the hopes that they get excited like he did about the wonders of science and technology. So just an amazing man. And we invited him back to come experience that 30th anniversary to pay tribute to him, to thank him for starting that day. And it was just incredible. We had him sit with the kids. He talked with them. He went and talked with our scientists after that. Had done a chemistry magic show for the kids. So just an incredible moment. You know, when asked to reflect on his loss last year, I said that I believe strongly that Walt would have the last word on this terrible virus. As head of GE's healthcare business and the R&D lab during his time with GE, Walt led the development of many of the medical technologies, CT, ultrasound, X-ray, that doctors and nurses are using today to help patients successfully recover from COVID-19. Walt is having the last word, and lives are being saved every day. And when you look at how our healthcare innovators have responded with new vaccines and therapeutics in record time, I know we're getting close to the day when this pandemic will finally be behind us. And tonight we join with Walt's family, with Richard, in remembering and honoring his memory. I know I speak for our Chief Technology Officer, Vigil, and the countless GE colleagues who knew and loved Walt, and convey our deepest sympathies to his family and to the families of the more than 1,000 Capital Region residents we lost to this pandemic. You know, at the same time, we also honor and salute the countless frontline heroes, from the hospital workers and store clerks to our government workers, public officials, and other individuals in your neighborhood or at work who have stepped up to do their part. I think we all have stories we could share. I'll share just one. It involves my colleague, Sean Connolly. In the early days of the pandemic, Sean and a colleague of ours learned of the need to provide hot meals to support 15 cancer patients going through treatment at Albany Medical Center. They were facing real economic hardships, and this was only made more challenging by the worsening COVID-19 pandemic. Sean, who oversees events and catering at the lab, quickly got together with Rob McIntosh, who works for Sodexo, who is a caterer at the research lab. They opened the kitchen, the two of them donned their aprons, and got to work. When it was all said and done, Sean and Rob, they prepped and delivered more than 1,000 meals for cancer patients locally. It's one story, one example of the thousands that we could all share that shows how our GE volunteers and how our local groups and individuals from all across the region have risen to the challenge and responded in times of need. Indeed, like Walt, I think we are all having the last word.
It's an honor to be here. In fact, it's an honor to have all you here because it's been a year since we've gathered in this room to sing praises or to remember or to do anything. And what's been lost over that course of time was the voice. A simple voice. You see, as we look at the toll of those that will perish as a result of COVID-19, there are also thousands of voices who have been displaced. Displaced because of economic changes, because of quarantine, because of lockdowns, because of hardship upon others. There's suffering and there's need. And we need to come together. You know, in the Bible, there's a section about prophets. Now, they're the big ones that you might have heard of, Jeremiah and Isaiah. But then there's one guy, this guy was like only a page and a half in the Bible, has an incredible word. His name was Habakkuk, and his word was this: the stones from the wall cry out. Now, stones don't talk. You and I know that. What they do is they pick up the echo of the voices that bounce off the walls. In the last year, houses of worship have been closed. Schools have been shut down. Businesses have been quietly disappearing or scaled way back. And the voices of the most needy in our community have lost places where their voice can be heard by bouncing off the stones of the building. And now we gather, a year later, with hope in sight, to realize that we have to build and work together, united together for our purpose. And that purpose is to make sure that those small voices are heard loud and clear. We are now the stones that will help them have their day in which their voices will be heard. It's our job to do so. And this night we marked the passing of a year ago of Walter Robb. And Walt was my neighbor. He lived around the corner from me. And I gotta tell you, he was always out on his front lawn. I found out just pulling up weeds, not planting anything. But he was always out there. And when I would come by, there was a chance to talk. Now, Walt didn't say all that much. He asked great questions. And he listened. And then when I saw him again, he repeated back some of the key points. This man was a gentle giant in our community. Not only in terms of science and technology and intellect, but of heart and soul. And I suggest, and I plead, that in his legacy, we pick up that mantle. And we become that stones in the walls that will sustain and rebuild our communities in such a way that they will echo the smallest voice, the most needy voice, as we stand united for that purpose. May his memory be for a blessing as we go forth. Gershon, I invite you back up to do your job.
So, first and foremost, thank you, Rabbi Cutler, for the kind words there. Let's see. While we can, in a sense, reflect on this historic moment in time together and be hopeful, we also acknowledge that the pandemic and its after effects are far from over. And that as we continue to recover, we cannot go back to normal as we once knew it. We have to do better, better for ourselves, better for our communities, and better for our next generation. With that, I am honored to introduce Dee Collin, Troy-based artist and poet, who will be sharing an original piece titled What We Have Now, about remembering, healing, and moving forward.
The before is gone. What I mean is it left without a goodbye or a handshake or a see you later. It left in a rage, an admonition, a wave of tears. And it went off with our stuff, packed in a messy suitcase without saying a word. And now, the house, emptier than before, burns. Today, there is a number that counts for us, names we hold in our hearts, the unclaimed and anonymous. What we have now rests in their stories. What we have now is the earth holding our breath while we assemble the pieces. Count the phases of the moon until we touch again. Watch the soil for a new growth of flowers we never planned on planting. To remember where we've been and where we need to go. What we have now is what we've learned. That before, gaping holes held our systems hostage. People on the edge of survival already, our most vulnerable, delivered into our hands. To hold them close, to do better. What we have now appreciates the underappreciated, fights for what is right, measures the human spirit to rise one day at a time.
Thank you for sharing your beautiful piece, Dee. As Todd spoke about this earlier, today is the one-year anniversary of the passing of Walter Robb, a very generous man who was beloved by so many. His work and legacy have left tremendous impact in the Capital Region and beyond. It is an honor to be joined this evening by Walter's eldest son, Richard, who will now join us with a few words.
Before I start on a lighter moment, Peter, that impromptu 4-hour session with Walt, I bet you $10 he was late for dinner that night. I have no doubt. This quote is from the late, great French poet and politician, Alphonse de Lamartine. When one person is missing, the whole world seems depopulated. In the moment of tragedy, we feel isolated and alone. Only through connecting do we find our way. When our loved one died, it was like no other time, given the isolation required of his or her condition. But in the face of grief, we all restore ourselves by coming together. We regain the importance of community at a higher level, coming together at a time of challenge. Without community, what is there? And what can we take away from our lost family member that should be carried forward? Hobbies, skills, community spirit, and support? I always respected the life of my dad while he was living, and I witnessed firsthand how fully engaged he was virtually all day. And when not out attending some meeting or working in his office right up to the age of 91 and 11 months, he could be found in his cherished lazy boy recliner, reading, reading, reading. Now with his passing, I am really reflecting on his life to be sure I'm at least a fraction of a contributor as he was in terms of community contribution and support, and in supporting growing business enterprises, and I do my best to keep up with his intellectual rigor. Perhaps a glimmer of what he did through his life can inspire you to examine how you're adding to your communities. He was involved with his church, with nonprofits as diverse as Proctor's and Hole in the Wall Camp as a board member, with local colleges and Penn State, and with small local businesses as a board member and an investor. His business success has been sufficiently covered both in the press and through earlier comments tonight, so I need not spend much time on that. But just listen to this from Penn State's obituary. Robb also provided financial support and an endowment to the Engineering Leadership Development Program housed in the Penn State School of Engineering, Design, Technology, and Professional Programs. This program focuses on helping students develop leadership skills needed to excel in an engineering career. The commitment Walt made to future engineering leaders was transformational, said Mike Erdman, retired Walter Robb, Director of Engineering Leadership Development. Walt was a strong proponent of the program, not only with financial support, but also sharing his time, giving invited lectures, serving on our advisory board, and providing feedback on our curriculum. He also stimulated his body and mind through sport and acquiring skills like sailing and flying a plane. Let's all find a way to improve the lives of those around us coming out of this tragic time, helping improve our own existences as well. Honor those you have lost with helping in some way to make our world complete again. Everyone has a candle, and for those at home, if you could light a candle, and in a minute or so, we'll pause for a moment of silence so we could all light our candles. Please light one for those viewing from your home. First, a moment of thankfulness for those people living who have, as talked about earlier today, helped get us through this. The first line workers, medical and otherwise, we are so thankful for them. And now a moment of silence for those of us that we've lost over the past 12 months. Thank you all very much.
So thank you, Richard, for sharing that with us, and on behalf of all of us, we extend our condolences on the loss of your dad. But we're grateful to have known him and have felt the impact of his life's work, and glad you could be here with us tonight and Dee and Rachel, thank you so much again for sharing your gifts with us. And listen, those watching at home, streaming, I'm sure you're inspired. Nothing compared to how we're feeling here in the room, but we have good news. The mural will be moving throughout the entire capital region over the next 2+ weeks, as Jershon mentioned before. To find out where you can see it, you visit our website, unitedwaygcr.org/tribute, and it is coming to a community near you over between now and April 3rd. We'll be on display each day from 1 to 6 p.m. And I'll be here, Congregation Gates of Heaven, tomorrow from 1 to 6 p.m. here in Schenectady. So nobody's waving their arms that I got that wrong, so trusting my instincts on that. I see a couple thumbs up. So thanks to all of our special invited guests for being here, for our team at United Way for all your hard work on this. We appreciate it. And the Wellness Awareness team who's bringing this to you on your tablet, television, or wherever you're watching tonight. We appreciate your support as well. Thanks for joining us.